My sister's fingers drummed against the salon's reception desk, manicured nails on cheap laminate, while I stood 3 feet behind her, holding the garment bag like a servant. She didn't bother to look back. She never did when we were out together. The dress inside the bag cost more than my monthly car payment. And she'd insisted I return it personally during her standing appointment because leaving it on her porch looked trashy. I should have refused. I'd been refusing Vanessa for 37 years, ever since the day she was born and my mother asked 5-year-old me if I wanted to hold my baby sister. Even then, I knew better. But habits calcify with time. And when she texted me last week with that precise mixture of urgency and entitlement only the youngest child can perfect, my thumbs typed fine before my brain could intervene. The salon reeked of ammonia and coconut, a cloying chemical sweetness that coated my throat. Hair dryers roared like jet engines. A blonde woman in the corner chair laughed far too loudly at something her stylist said. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead at a pitch that promised a headache by evening. Everything about the place screamed mid-range, pretending to be upscale, from vinyl chairs masquerading as leather to the generic jazz leaking through ceiling speakers, distorted by static. Vanessa Tillery, the receptionist's smile was polished and empty. "That's me," my sister finally turned. Her gaze flicked to the garment bag in my hands, then to my face, settling into that familiar expression, half pity, half revulsion, a look she'd refined over decades. "God, Shirnda," she said quietly, sharply, "you couldn't have tried today, we're in public." I looked down at myself, jeans, a plain black sweater, running shoes. Clean, practical, comfortable, appropriate for someone who'd already put in 6 hours at the office before running this errand. But to Vanessa, I might as well have arrived wrapped in a towel. "I'm just dropping off your dress," I said. Obviously, she took the garment bag from me without thanks and handed it to the receptionist. "Can you hang this somewhere safe?" "It's Versace." The receptionist's eyes widened on cue. Vanessa lived for that reaction. "Your stylist is just finishing with her previous client," the receptionist said. "Maybe 10 more minutes." Vanessa exhaled like she'd been sentenced to a decade. She turned and surveyed the salon with the detached disdain of someone who'd never worked a service job in her life. I should have left then. 17 case files waited on my desk. 3 were time-sensitive. 2 required my signature by end of day tomorrow, but my feet stayed planted on the scuffed linoleum. Some stubborn, foolish part of me still believed, despite 30 years of evidence, that one day Vanessa might look at me and see a person instead of a liability. "Oh, look," Vanessa said, her voice lifting into performance mode. "Angela's here." I turned to see a woman our age approaching early 30s, flawless highlights, designer athleisure, smile sharp and hollow. Angela Wadle, high school friend. Which meant she, too, had perfected the art of erasing me. "Nessa," Angela said, air-kissing both cheeks. "I didn't know you'd be here today." "Emergency color correction," Vanessa replied, touching her already immaculate honey-blonde waves. "That Cabo wedding destroyed my ends. The sun there is brutal. Oh my God, I saw your posts. That villa was insane." They dissolved into conversation, names I didn't recognize, places I'd never visited, problems that only existed within their income bracket. I stood there like furniture, keys clenched in my hand, checking my phone every 30 seconds for messages that wouldn't come because I'd told my team I'd be offline for an hour, 43 minutes. That was how long Vanessa made us wait at Mom's birthday dinner last month after losing track of time at Pilates. When I'd finally asked if we could order without her, Mom looked at me like I'd suggested eating the centerpiece. "Your sister has such a demanding schedule, Shirnda. Surely you can be patient." Yes, patience. That had been my assignment since kindergarten, the responsible one, the low-maintenance one. The child who didn't need attention because I was so independent. Never mind that independence wasn't a choice when your parents were too busy managing your sister's crises to notice you detaught yourself to read, or that you'd been packing your own lunches since 2nd grade. Vanessa, a stylist, emerged from the back, mid-40s, kind eyes, hands that moved with practiced elegance. "I'm ready for you." Finally, Vanessa turned to follow her, then paused as if remembering I existed. "Oh, you can go now, Shirnda." "No thank you, no acknowledgement, just dismissal, casual, effortless." "Actually," the receptionist interjected, "if you're both free, Marcus can take you at the same time." She looked at me hopefully. "We have side-by-side chairs open, and he just had a cancellation." I watched the calculation flicker across Vanessa's face, the cost of being seen with me versus the mild inconvenience of declining. I was already shaking my head, already pulling out my phone, already mapping my exit when Angela laughed. "Oh, that's perfect." She clasped her hands together theatrically. "You two can catch up. I bet you never get time together with your busy schedules." Schedules, the word carried a soft sneer. Vanessa's schedule: charity events, boutique fitness classes, brunch, interior design consultations for the house her hedge fund husband bought her. My schedule: vague, probably depressing. "Definitely not party conversation." "I don't think," I started. "Come on, it'll be fun," Angela said. The receptionist was already waving over a stylist, a man with an undercut and tattooed sleeves. "Marcus is amazing with difficult hair." Difficult hair. The phrase landed like a slap, though she likely meant my natural hair, coily, thick, usually pulled into a bun because I didn't have 2 spare hours every morning. Vanessa's hair, thanks to keratin treatments and weekly blowouts, fell in glossy waves that belonged in shampoo commercials. "Sure doesn't really do salons," Vanessa said, her tone gentle on the surface, venom underneath. "She's more of a supercuts person." Angela's brows lifted. Marcus kept his face neutral. The receptionist's smile faltered. I should have laughed, should have minimized myself, made a self-deprecating joke. Done what I'd always done, absorbed the insult, smoothed it over, made everyone comfortable with my humiliation, but something fractured. Maybe it was the case file I'd reviewed that morning, a 15-year-old trafficked by her own uncle who'd learned early that silence meant survival. Maybe it was the 3 hours of sleep I'd gotten after a late-night call with Mexican authorities about a cartel kidnapping. Maybe it was the 40-minute detour during my lunch break to return a dress my sister demanded I borrow. Then demanded I return in person because mailing it was tacky. Or maybe it was 37 years of this same moment, replayed in different rooms, with different audiences, always the same script. Vanessa elevated, me reduced, everyone else pretending not to see. Actually, I heard myself say, "I have a regular stylist." Vanessa laughed, sharp and brittle. "A regular stylist. Shiren to please, where? The supercuts by your apartment." "Nessa," Angela said lightly, delighted, "be nice. Not everyone can afford." "I'm just being realistic," Vanessa cut in, turning fully toward me now. Stylists and clients watched. "There's no shame in budget cuts. But let's not pretend you're some kind of salon regular. You work for the government, right? Some administrative job, filing paperwork. Those don't exactly pay well." The salon seemed to go silent. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe the dryer's still Mom asks what you do all day, you give these vague answers that make everyone uncomfortable. She softened her voice. "I'm worried about you, we all are." There it was, the culmination. This had never been about hair. It was about the fact that I'd never fit into the story they'd written, the version where Vanessa was the golden child and I was the cautionary tale. The one who'd wasted her potential on a dead-end government job instead of marrying well like Mom had always hoped. Never mind that I'd put myself through college and graduate school. Never mind that I'd worked 80-hour weeks to get where I was. Never mind that the vague non-answers weren't because I was ashamed, but because I'd signed federal non-disclosure agreements that carried criminal penalties if violated. "I appreciate your concern," I said, each word precisely placed, "but I'm fine. You're clearly not fine." Vanessa was warming to her theme now, energized by Angela's encouraging nods and the receptionist's uncomfortable silence. "You never come to family things unless Mom forces you. You don't have any friends that we know of. You're single, you have no social life. And you look like," she gestured at my entire body, her hand fluttering dismissively. "God, Char, when was the last time you even tried? Did something happen? Are you depressed? Because there are therapists who..." Vanessa, my voice could have frozen water. She blinked, startled. I never interrupted her. That wasn't our dynamic. I said, "I'm fine, thank you for the concern, I have to get back to work." I I turned toward the door. See. Vanessa's voice rose, addressing her audience now instead of me. This is what she does. She shuts down. She walks away. She acts like everyone's attacking her when we're just trying to help. I kept walking. Behind me, I heard Angela murmur something sympathetic, heard the rustling of someone settling into a styling chair, heard the hair dryers resume their warring. The salon door opened with an electronic chime, cheerful, mocking, and I stepped out into the afternoon sunshine that was somehow too bright, too harsh, like the world was overexposed. My car was parked 3 blocks away in a public lot because the salon's lot had been full. I walked carefully, precisely, each step measured, because if I walked any other way, I might break into a run or punch something or scream. And I'd learned a long time ago that women who looked like me didn't get to express rage in public without consequences. 41 years old, that's how long I'd been playing this game. The game where I made myself smaller so Vanessa could shine brighter. The game where I absorbed her casual cruelties and mom's disappointed sighs and dad's obvious favoritism and told myself it didn't matter, that I was above it. That I had a career and a purpose and that was enough, but it wasn't enough. It had never been enough. I unlocked my car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic that ran perfectly, but apparently screamed failure to my family, and sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. My hands were shaking. I gripped the steering wheel until they stopped. My phone buzzed, a text from my deputy director. Situation developing in Phoenix. Need you on conference call in 20. I started the engine. Work. I had work. Work was clean. Work was logical. Work had rules and hierarchies that made sense. At work, people called me ma'am or special agent in charge, or occasionally that woman who scares the absolute out of me. Overheard in the break room last month, and I'd smiled for the rest of the day. At work, I was someone. At family events, I was sure, the disappointing one, the weird one, the one they worried about and whispered conversations when they thought I couldn't hear. I drove back to the office on autopilot, my mind replaying the salon scene on loop. Vanessa's laugh, Angela's knowing look, the receptionist's uncomfortable smile. Difficult hair, super cuts, budget cuts, administrative thing. They didn't know they couldn't know. I'd kept the secret because it was easier. Because explaining would have required conversations I didn't have the energy for. Because the moment I told them what I really did, they'd find new ways to diminish it. Vanessa would somehow make it about her. Mom would worry it wasn't feminine enough. Dad would ask why I wasn't making more money if the job was so important. Better to be underestimated than to watch them actively devalue something I'd bled for. I pulled into the secure parking garage beneath our field office, badged through 3 separate checkpoints, and took the elevator to the 5th floor. My assistant, Julie Nesmith, looked up from her desk with the expression she got when something bad was brewing. Conference room 3, she said. Phoenix SAC is already on the line. There's been a development with the Sinaloa investigation. I nodded, dropping my bag on my desk and grabbing the relevant files. This was a case I'd been building for 18 months, a trafficking network that stretched from Guadalajara to Seattle, moving everything from cocaine to human cargo. We'd been waiting for the right moment to move, and if Phoenix was calling an emergency conference, that moment had probably arrived. The next 4 hours disappeared into tactical planning, asset placement, warrant coordination, interagency politics. The kind of work that required every neuron firing in sync, that left no room for wounded feelings or family drama. It was almost 7 when I finally came up for air. Julie had left a turkey sandwich on my desk. She had learned early on that I forgot to eat when I was deep in a case, and I devoured it while reviewing deployment schedules. My phone had 4 missed calls from Vanessa. I ignored them. At 8:30, my desk phone rang with an internal extension I didn't recognize. Jar, I answered. Agent in charge, this is Officer Kathy Reed from Building Security. I have a situation at the front desk. I waited. Security didn't call me for normal situations. There's a woman here who says she's your sister. She's quite insistent about seeing you. I've explained our visitor protocols, but I closed my eyes, refusing to leave. Yes, ma'am, she's also getting increasingly loud. And we have a shift change happening in 10 minutes, which means civilian contractors will be coming through, and I'll be right down. I took the elevator to the ground floor lobby, the public-facing one. With the metal detectors and the bulletproof glass, and the security officers who'd seen everything humanity had to offer and weren't impressed by any of it. Vanessa stood at the visitor desk, her designer purse clutched in front of her like a shield, her perfect hair slightly disheveled. When she saw me emerge from the secure elevator bank, her expression cycled through relief, anger, and something that might have been fear. Finally, she snapped. "Do you know how long I've been waiting? These people wouldn't even tell me if you worked here. They treated me like I was some kind of criminal." The security officer, Reed, according to her nameplate, gave me a look that said, "I'm sorry, but also your sister is the worst." "What are you doing here, Vanessa?" I kept my voice neutral. "Professional. We had cameras, we always had cameras." "What am I?" she sputtered. "You left, you just walked out in the middle of our conversation. You ignored my calls, and then when I looked up where you worked, the address took me to this fortress." "How did you find this address?" I interrupted. Our field office location wasn't classified, but it also wasn't advertised. I called Mom and told her you'd had some kind of breakdown at the salon. "And she gave me your work address because she's worried about you." "Sure, we're all worried." Of course she'd called Mom. Of course she'd framed it as my breakdown instead of her cruelty. That was the family script. When Shirenda gets upset, it's because there's something wrong with Shirenda, not because anyone did anything wrong to her. "I'm fine," I said, "but you can't be here. This is a federal facility. You need to leave." "I'm not leaving until we talk." Vanessa planted her feet like a toddler refusing to go to bed. "You can't just run away every time someone tries to help you." "Ma'am." Officer Reed stepped forward, her hand resting casually on her belt, not threatening, just present. "I need to ask you to lower your voice or exit the building." Vanessa turned her indignation on Reed. "Excuse me, I'm trying to have a conversation with my sister." "Ma'am, this is your final warning." Something in Reed's tone, that flat official register that said "I will physically remove you if necessary," finally penetrated Vanessa's entitled bubble. She turned back to me, her eyes wide. "Shirenda, tell her you need to leave." "Vanessa." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "Are you serious right now? I drove all the way here. I waited 40 minutes and you're going to yes." The word came out harder than I intended. "I have work to do. Go home." For a long moment, we stood there in the fluorescent-lit lobby, reflected in bulletproof glass, watched by cameras and security officers and the ghost of our entire childhood. I saw the exact second she decided to escalate, saw her mouth open, saw her inhale, saw her preparing to make a scene that would force my hand. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "if you don't leave right now, these officers will escort you out. You'll be banned from this facility, and I will tell Mom exactly why. Your choice." She went pale. Whatever she'd expected, it wasn't that. "Fine," she hissed. "Fine, but don't come crying to me when you finally realize how alone you are. Don't expect me to." "I won't," I said. "I never have." She left, her heels clicking sharply on the tile floor, her exit diminished by the fact that she had to wait for security to buzz open the door. A small indignity that would probably fuel hours of complaints to her friends. Officer Reed waited until Vanessa was gone, then turned to me with something like sympathy. "Sorry about that, ma'am. Family can be." "Yeah, I said they can be." I went back upstairs, back to my files, back to the work that made sense. At 11 p.m., Julie sent me a text. "Go home. The cartels will still be there tomorrow." She was right, but I stayed until midnight anyway because my apartment was empty and quiet and filled with furniture I'd bought because it was practical, not because I loved it. And at least here I was useful. I didn't think about the salon. I didn't think about Vanessa's laugh or Angela's smirk or the receptionist's uncomfortable smile. I definitely didn't think about the words difficult hair or super cuts or administrative thing. I didn't think about any of it. That's what I told myself anyway. 3 days later, I sat in my office reviewing the operational plan for the Phoenix deployment when Julie knocked on my door. "Your mother is online too," she said carefully. "She sounds concerned." I'd been expecting this call since the moment Vanessa left the building. My mother, Patricia Tiller, was nothing if not predictable. Family emergency, right pointing arrow. Immediate phone tree activation, right pointing arrow. Therapeutic intervention for the troubled daughter. "Thanks, Julie." I picked up the receiver. "Hi, Mom, Shirenda Marie." Full name usage, not good. "I just had the most disturbing conversation with your sister." "Did you?" "Don't use that tone with me. She said you had some kind of episode at a salon, then you completely cut her off. And when she tried to check on you at your workplace, which she did out of love, I'll remind you, you threatened to have her arrested." "I didn't threaten to have her arrested. I told her she needed to leave a federal facility when she refused to follow security protocols." "A federal facility?" Mom's voice dripped with skepticism. Shirenda, I know you work for the government doing whatever it is you do, filing things, but there's no need to be so dramatic about it. Vanessa was worried. She drove all that way because she cares about you. I closed my eyes. Here it was, the same conversation we've been having for 15 years. Ever since I'd stopped trying to explain what my job actually entailed and learned that vague answers were easier than watching my mother's face glaze over with disinterest. Mom, Vanessa wasn't checking on me. She was angry I didn't let her insult me to my face. Insult you, sweetie. She was trying to help. You never take care of yourself. You never make an effort with your appearance. And when someone who loves you points it out gently, you act like they've attacked you. She told a room full of strangers that I get my hair cut at Supercuts because I can't afford better. Well, Mom hesitated. Can you? The question landed like a physical blow. Not did she really say that, or that was unkind, or even maybe she phrased it badly. Just can you afford better? I have to go. I said, I have a meeting. See, this is exactly what Vanessa means. You shut down, you close off, you act like everyone's against you. I have a meeting, Mom, an actual meeting about actual work. I'll call you later. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking again. I pressed them flat against my desk until they stopped. Julie appeared in my doorway 5 minutes later with a coffee I hadn't asked for. Black, no sugar, exactly the way I liked it. She set it on my desk without comment, but her eyes were kind. Phoenix deployment is confirmed for Friday. She said Sak Chen wants a final briefing at 60 tomorrow. I'll be there. She hesitated. You know, there's no shame in taking a personal day. The operation can run without you for 24 hours. I'm fine, right? She didn't believe me, but she was too professional to push. Let me know if you need anything. After she left, I picked up the coffee and let the warmth seep into my palms. Friday's operation would involve 47 federal agents, $12 million in seized assets, and hopefully finally the arrest of the trafficking network I'd been chasing for 18 months. 47 agents who would follow my orders without question, who called me boss or ma'am or special agent in charge, who understood chain of command and mission objectives and the weight of the badge. We all carried, not one of them would ask if I could afford a decent haircut. The rest of the week blurred into tactical planning. I slept 4 hours a night, survived on coffee and protein bars, and ignored 3 more calls from Vanessa and 2 from Mom. On Thursday afternoon, my father, who usually stayed out of family drama, sent a text. Your mother says you're not talking to Vanessa. This is silly. Your sisters, fix it. I deleted the text. Friday morning, I was in the office at 5:30 a.m. reviewing equipment manifests when my phone rang. Unknown number, but with a Phoenix area code, I answered. Special agent in charge. This is Detective Mike Ortiz with Phoenix PD. I'm coordinating local support for your operation today. Detective, thanks for the call. Listen, we might have a complication. One of our confidential informants just reported unusual activity at the secondary target location, the warehouse on West Van Buren. Looks like they're moving product earlier than expected. My stomach dropped. The secondary location was supposed to be a safe observation point, minimal resistance, mostly paperwork and evidence collection. If they were moving product early, it meant our timeline was compromised. How unusual, 6 vehicles instead of the usual 2, armed security outside. This CI thinks they're preparing for a major shipment tonight instead of tomorrow. I pulled up the operational map on my computer. Can you confirm the CI's reliability? He's been solid for 8 months. Never steered us wrong. Okay, give me 10 minutes. I need to brief my team and adjust deployment. I hung up and immediately called our Phoenix SACE, then our tactical coordinator, then the deputy director. Within 20 minutes, we'd restructured the entire operation, advance the timeline, shift resources to the secondary location, increase armed support. It was the kind of high-wire decision-making that could end careers if it went wrong, or save lives if it went right. By 2 p.m., I was on a government plane to Phoenix with 6 of my senior agents. By 5:00 p.m., we were in position outside a warehouse that looked like 100 other buildings in the industrial district. Corrugated metal sides, small windows, fenced perimeter. By 8:00 p.m., we had 14 suspects in custody, $2 million in cocaine seized, and intelligence that would crack open trafficking routes across 3 states. By midnight, I was giving a press statement to local media, while Phoenix PD's brass stood behind me. And the DEA's deputy director called to personally congratulate me on exceptional leadership under evolving circumstances. I flew back to Seattle at 2 a.m., slept 3 hours on the plane, and went straight to the office to begin processing paperwork. This was my life, this was what I'd chosen, and it was enough. It had to be enough. On Saturday, 5 days after the Salon incident, I went grocery shopping because my refrigerator contained only condiments and expired yogurt. I was debating between two brands of coffee when my phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa. Mom's 60th birthday dinner is next Saturday at Bella Vista, 6 p.m. She wants both of us there. Don't make this weird. I stared at the message for a long moment. Bella Vista was Mom's favorite restaurant, the kind of place with white tablecloths and a wine list that required a sommelier and entrée that cost more than some people's car payments. It was also Vanessa's domain, the kind of establishment where she knew the matry by name and could request her table with confidence. I could skip it. I'd skipped events before with sufficient excuse. Work emergencies, travel cases that couldn't be delayed. Mom would be disappointed but not surprised. Vanessa would use my absence as evidence that I was antisocial, possibly disturbed, definitely in need of intervention. But it was Mom's 60th birthday, and despite everything, despite the favoritism and the disappointment and the complete inability to see me as anything other than the daughter who'd failed to meet expectations, she was still my mother. I typed, "I'll be there." Vanessa's response came immediately. "Good, and please try to dress appropriately. This is a nice place." I didn't respond. The week leading up to the dinner was mercifully busy. The Phoenix operation had generated follow-up investigations across 4 states. I testified in 2 separate court proceedings. I reviewed 300 pages of financial records. I worked late every night and told myself I was avoiding going home to my sad little apartment, not avoiding thinking about seeing my family again. On Saturday afternoon, I stood in front of my closet trying to decide what appropriately meant in Vanessa's vocabulary. I owned exactly 3 dresses, all purchased for work functions where business attire was required. I chose the black one, simple, classic, the kind of dress that disappeared into backgrounds, and paired it with low heels and minimal jewelry. I looked in the mirror and saw exactly what I always saw, a woman approaching middle age, carrying the weight of too many sleepless nights and too many difficult decisions. My hair was pulled back in a low bun, my makeup was minimal. I looked professional, respectable, boring, difficult hair. I turned away from the mirror. Bella Vista was a 30-a-nut drive through traffic I usually avoided by working weekends. I arrived exactly on time, not early enough to be desperate, not late enough to be rude, and gave my name to the hostess. "Ah, yes, the Tillery party. Your mother and sister are already here." The hostess's smile was warm as she led me through the restaurant. The table was near a window overlooking the city, prime real estate, naturally. Mom sat facing the entrance, her silver hair professionally styled, wearing a cream silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. Vanessa sat beside her in a dress that screamed, "I spent 6 hours shopping for this," her makeup perfect, her posture radiating ownership of the space. They didn't see me immediately. I watched Mom lean toward Vanessa, watched my sister laugh at something, watched the easy intimacy between them. The kind of relationship I'd stopped trying to have with either of them somewhere around my 20th birthday. Shirnda, Mom's face lit up when she spotted me. Genuine pleasure which made everything harder. "You made it and you look lovely." I heard the subtext. "You actually tried this time. Happy birthday, Mom." I kissed her cheek and slid into the seat across from them. Vanessa's smile was tight. "You're wearing that dress again?" she observed. "The one from Angela's wedding. It's a dress," I said. "That's what it's for. I just mean you could vary your wardrobe a little, not recycle the same outfit for every event." She sipped her wine, something red and undoubtedly expensive, "But you look nice." Very professional, professional, another word that sounded like a compliment but landed like an insult. "How's work?" Mom asked brightly, deploying her favorite subject change technique. "Are you still doing that administrative job?" "I'm still working for the DEA." "Yes, right, the DEA," she said it the way you'd say the DMV or the post office. A governmental agency that existed somewhere in the bureaucratic ether. "That's so nice that you found something stable. Your father was just saying the other day how important it is to have job security, especially at your age." At my age 41, the unspoken implication, too old to start over, too old to find a husband, too old to course correct whatever wrong turn, had led me to a life of filing papers in a windowless government office. Mom, Vanessa said, her voice sticky sweet, maybe we shouldn't talk about work. Shirenda seemed really stressed the other day. I think her job might be. She lowered her voice conspiratorially, affecting her mental health. I felt my jaw tighten. My mental health is fine, you just seem tense. And when I tried to check on you out of genuine concern, you had security guards threaten me. That's not normal, Char. That's not how stable people behave. Mom's face creased with worry. Security guards, Shirenda, what is she talking about? Vanessa showed up at my office unannounced and refused to leave when asked. Security followed protocol. Protocol, Vanessa laughed. God, listen to yourself. You sound like a robot. This is what I mean. Mom, she's so closed off, so weird about everything. She won't tell us anything real about her life. She lives in that depressing apartment. She drives that old car. Vanessa, Mom said gently, maybe this isn't the time. When is the time? Vanessa's voice rose slightly. She never talks to us. She barely shows up to family events. And when she does, she acts like she's doing us this huge favor by gracing us with her presence. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Something is wrong and she won't let anyone help her. The table next to us glanced over. I felt my face heat, not from embarrassment, but from rage. That old familiar rage that I'd learned to compress into a dense ball and lock away somewhere behind my sternum. There's nothing wrong with me, I said quietly. Then why don't you ever talk about your life? Why is everything a secret? What are you hiding? I'm not hiding anything. I work for a federal agency. Some things are confidential. Oh, please. Vanessa rolled her eyes. You file paperwork. You're not James Bond. Stop acting like your boring government job is some kind of classified mission. It's embarrassing. The server appeared with perfect timing, asking if we were ready to order. Mom fumbled with her menu, clearly uncomfortable. Vanessa ordered first, something complicated with modifications. I ordered the first thing I saw and handed back the menu. After the server left, Mom tried again to redirect. So Vanessa tells me you borrowed her Versace for a work function. How did that go? It was fine, just fine. Vanessa leaned forward. Come on, Char, where was this function? Who was there? Give us something. It was a work dinner. Where? Downtown. Where? Downtown. I met her eyes. Why does it matter? Because I'm trying to have a conversation with you. Because normal sisters share details about their lives because she stopped recalibrating. You know what? Forget it. You're right, let's not talk about your super secret government job that you can't tell anyone about because it's so incredibly important. The sarcasm was thick enough to cut. We ate in near silence. Mom making valiant attempts at neutral topics. The weather, a movie she'd seen, gossip about a neighbor. Vanessa responded with elaborate stories about her life, the charity gala she was organizing, the new boutique gym she'd discovered. The couple's vacation she and her husband were planning to Tuscany. I ate my food and said little because anything I said would be dissected later, analyzed for signs of instability, used as evidence that something was wrong with me. When dessert came, elaborate chocolate thing with a candle that the entire restaurant sang for, Mom smiled so genuinely that I felt a sharp ache in my chest. She was happy. This was all she wanted. Her daughters at a nice dinner celebrating her milestone birthday. The fact that one of those daughters had spent the entire meal being subtly eviscerated didn't register. Or maybe it did and she'd simply decided, as she always did, that keeping the peace was more important than defending me. Make a wish, Vanessa said, her phone already out to capture the moment. Mom closed her eyes, inhaled, blew out the candle. We applauded politely. Speech. Someone at another table called out, a friend of Mom's apparently. Mom laughed, stood, gave a brief thank you to everyone for coming. There were other people here I hadn't noticed and singled out Vanessa for planning such a perfect evening. I wasn't mentioned. After dessert, after coffee, after the check was paid, Vanessa insisted on covering it. My treat, Mom, with a credit card that bore her husband's name, we stood to leave. The restaurant was still crowded, the bar area packed with well-dressed people holding craft cocktails. We were weaving through the crowd toward the exit when someone called out, Sure, Shirenda. I turned. A man in his 50s stood near the bar, scotch in hand, with the kind of face that had seen things he couldn't unsee. It took me half a second to place him. Robert Keene, assistant director of the Seattle field office. My boss's boss. Adding, I said, professional reflex kicking in. I didn't expect to see you here. Birthday dinner with my wife. He gestured to a woman beside him who smiled politely. And you, my mother's 60th. His face broke into a warm smile. Congratulations, Mrs. Tillery. 60 looks good on you. Mom blinked, confused but pleased. Thank you. Are you a friend of Shirenda's colleague? He said, I have the privilege of working with your daughter. Vanessa's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. You work in administration too? Keen laughed, the kind of laugh that said he found something genuinely amusing. Administration, that's one way to put it. He turned back to me. Listen, I wanted to tell you personally that Phoenix operation last week was textbook, clean, efficient, exactly the kind of leadership the Bureau talks about, but rarely sees executed that well. The director specifically mentioned you in the briefing yesterday. Mom's smile had frozen. Vanessa had gone very still. Thank you, sir, I said. The team deserves most of the credit. Humble as always, he shook his head. Your mother must be proud. It's not every day someone manages a multi-state takedown and brings everyone home safe. He raised his scotch in a toast. To family and public service, enjoy your celebration. He turned back to his wife, dismissing us with the casual confidence of someone who'd said what he came to say. I looked at Mom, at Vanessa, at their identical expressions of confusion and dawning realization. Sure, Mom said slowly. What did he mean by multi-state takedown? It's work stuff. Work stuff, Vanessa's voice was sharp. He made it sound like you were, I don't know, leading some kind of police operation. I do lead operations. That's my job. Your job? Vanessa laughed. Hi, brittle, your job is filing paperwork. No, I said, each word carved from ice. My job is special agent in charge of the Seattle DEA field office. I oversee 300 personnel. I coordinate federal drug enforcement operations across Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and parts of Idaho. Last week's operation resulted in 14 arrests and the seizure of assets worth roughly $48 million. That's my job. The silence that followed was profound. Mom's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're in charge of the DEA office. Yes, but you always said you worked for the government, that it was boring, that I said I worked for the DEA. You never asked what I did. That wasn't entirely fair. They'd asked early on, but their eyes had glazed over when I tried to explain, and they'd interrupted with stories about Vanessa's life. And eventually, I'd learned that vague answers were easier than watching them pretend to care, while obviously not caring. 300 people, Vanessa's voice was faint. You're in charge of 300 people, yes, and the operation he mentioned, a trafficking investigation I'd been running for 18 months. Running. You were running it, Vanessa looked at Mom, then back at me. So when I came to your office, that building with all the security, that was the DEA field office. Yes. Quote, and when you said I needed to leave, I meant it. You were in a federal facility making a scene. They could have arrested you for disorderly conduct if I'd asked them to. Vanessa's face had gone pale. Mom looked like she was trying to solve a complex equation and couldn't find the right formula. Why didn't you tell us? Mom finally asked, and there was hurt in her voice. Real hurt, which somehow made me angrier. I tried to tell you for years, but you weren't interested in details. You wanted vague reassurance that I had a stable job so you could stop worrying and go back to discussing Vanessa's life, which was fine, I understood. Not everyone finds federal law enforcement fascinating, so I gave you vague answers and you accepted them and everyone was happy. Happy, Vanessa's voice cracked. You let us think you were some low-level bureaucrat. You let me. She stopped, horror dawning in her eyes. Oh my God, at the salon. I told everyone you got your haircut at Supercuts because you couldn't afford better. And you're making what? 6 figures more. My salary is public record. You could have looked it up any time. Jesus Christ, Vanessa pressed her hands to her face. Everyone at that salon, Angela, the staff, they all heard me mock you for being poor, and you're probably making twice what Scott makes. Scott was her hedge fund husband. Based on the lifestyle they displayed, I doubted I made twice his salary, but I certainly wasn't shopping at Supercuts out of financial necessity. I don't understand, Mom said, and she looked genuinely bewildered. Why would you keep this a secret? Shirenda, this is good news. This is you're successful, you're important. Why wouldn't you want us to know? And there it was, the question I'd been asking myself for years, because it wouldn't have mattered, I said quietly. You would have found something else to worry about, that I wasn't married, that I didn't have kids, that my job was dangerous or unfeminine or not what you'd envisioned for me. You would have made it about how it affected you instead of being proud of what I'd accomplished, and I didn't have the energy to defend my choices to people who'd already decided they knew better. That's not fair, Mom, isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my work without immediately changing the subject? When was the last time Vanessa showed interest in my life beyond using it as proof that something was wrong with me? Vanessa flinched. I thought you were struggling. I thought you thought what you wanted to think because it made you feel superior, and Mom let you because it was easier than confronting the fact that maybe, just maybe, I'd built a life that didn't revolve around your approval. People were staring now. The hostess was hovering nearby, clearly wondering if she needed to intervene. I think we should continue this conversation elsewhere, Mom said, her voice trembling. There's nothing more to say. I pulled my car keys from my purse. Happy birthday, Mom. I hope it was everything you wanted. I left them standing there. Mom with tears in her eyes, Vanessa with her mouth open, both of them frozen in the kind of tableau that would be seared into my memory forever. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. I unlocked my old Honda Civic, the one they'd mocked, the car that had been with me through graduate school and field training and my first posting, and sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. My phone buzzed within 30 seconds. Text from Mom, please come back, let's talk about this. Then Vanessa, I'm sorry, I didn't know, please, I turned off my phone. They called every day for a week. Mom, Vanessa, even Dad, who left a voicemail saying I was being dramatic and needed to stop punishing people for caring. I didn't answer. On day 8, Vanessa showed up at my apartment. I watched through the peephole as she knocked, waited, knocked again, finally slid an envelope under the door and left. Inside was a handwritten letter, 4 pages of apologies, explanations, justifications. She was sorry for how she'd treated me. She hadn't known. She'd been worried. She'd meant well. But also, did I really think it was fair to let them believe I was struggling when I clearly wasn't? Didn't I understand how that made them feel? Constantly worrying about me when there was nothing to worry about, wasn't I partially responsible for the misunderstanding by being so secretive? I read it twice, then put it in a drawer. On day 12, Mom came by. I opened the door because she was my mother and some instincts die hard. Sweetie, she said, and her eyes were red from crying. Please talk to me. We sat in my living room, the one with the sad furniture, the one they'd never visited before because I'd never invited them. Because I'd known they'd see only what was missing instead of what I'd built. I don't know what you want me to say, I told her. I want to understand. Why didn't you trust us with the truth? Because the truth didn't matter to you. You had already decided who I was. The disappointing daughter, the one who needed help, the one who'd wasted her potential. My actual accomplishments would have been inconvenient to that narrative. That's not true. We love you. You love the idea of me fitting into the life you imagined. When I didn't fit, you decided something was wrong with me instead of accepting that I'd chosen differently. She was quiet for a long minute. I thought I was being supportive, accepting you where you were, not pushing you to a certain. You were accepting me as a failure. There's a difference. I never thought of you as a failure, really, because Vanessa did and you never corrected her. She mocked my apartment, my car, my job, my appearance, and you said nothing. You let her do it because some part of you agreed with her. That's not, she stopped, closed her eyes. Maybe you're right, maybe I did. Not consciously, but she opened her eyes again and they were full of pain. I was so focused on Vanessa. She needed so much attention, so much guidance, and you were always so independent, so capable. I thought you didn't need me. I didn't need you to fix me. I needed you to see me. I'm seeing you now, she whispered, and I'm so sorry it took this long. We sat in silence. Outside my window, the city hummed. Sirens and traffic and the ambient noise of thousands of lives intersecting without touching. I don't know how to fix this, Mom said finally. Maybe you can't, she flinched. Don't say that. Why not? Some things break beyond repair. Some relationships can't recover from years of neglect dressed up as love. You're my daughter. I will always love you. I know, I said, that's not the problem. The problem is that love by itself isn't enough, not when it comes with conditions I can't meet. Not when it requires me to be smaller so Vanessa can be bigger. Not when it means accepting mockery as concern and condescension as care. What do you want from me? Her voice broke. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. I looked at her, really looked at her. 60 years old, silver-haired, wearing her worry-like jewelry. A woman who'd done her best with limited tools. Who'd loved us the only way she knew how. Who'd made choices she probably regretted, even if she couldn't articulate why. I want you to tell Vanessa that what she did was wrong, not unfortunate or a misunderstanding. Wrong, cruel, unacceptable. Okay, I want you to acknowledge that you enabled it by never defending me. She swallowed hard, okay, and I want you to accept that I might never forgive either of you, not because I'm bitter, but because some wounds don't heal, they scar over. And scars are permanent reminders of damage done. I can accept that, she whispered, though her face said otherwise. After she left, I sat in my apartment, my sad, small apartment with its practical furniture in its quiet rooms, and felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, something else, something that felt like releasing a weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten it was there. 3 weeks after the dinner, Vanessa left another envelope under my door. This one was shorter. Shirnda, I've spent 3 weeks trying to write the perfect apology. Something that would make you understand how sorry I am, how much I regret everything. But there is no perfect apology, there's only the truth. I was cruel to you because it made me feel better about myself. Because as long as you were the struggling one, the unsuccessful one, I got to be the golden child. I needed you to be less so I could be more. That's ugly, that's unforgivable, but it's true. I don't expect you to call me or see me or ever speak to me again. I just wanted you to know that I finally see what I did and I hate myself for it. I'm sorry, Vanessa. I read it 3 times, filed it in the same drawer as the first letter, didn't respond. Because here's what they didn't understand. An apology isn't a magic eraser. Acknowledgement doesn't undo years of damage. Regret doesn't entitle you to forgiveness. Some things once broken stay broken. 6 months later, I got promoted to regional director, a position that covered 7 states and required relocation to Los Angeles. I didn't tell my family until after I'd accepted, until after I'd sold my apartment and packed my life into boxes labeled with professional efficiency. Mom cried when I called her, "You're leaving." But we were just starting to. I know, I said, but this is my career. This is what I chose. Will you visit? Maybe eventually. Vanessa sent a text. Congratulations, you deserve it. I didn't respond to that either because here's what I learned from 3 decades of being the disappointing daughter. Some people will never see you until you're walking away, and by then it's too late. The view is better from this side anyway. My new office in Los Angeles has floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I have a team of 400 personnel. I coordinate operations that span the West Coast. I'm good at my job, exceptional even. And I'm alone, but here's the thing about being alone. It's not the same as being lonely. Lonely is what I felt sitting at family dinners while they talked around me through me about me. Alone is what I feel now, and it's quiet and it's clean and it's mine. I keep both of Vanessa's letters in my desk drawer. I don't read them, but I don't throw them away either. Some wounds don't heal, but sometimes knowing they won't, accepting it, naming it, refusing to pretend otherwise is its own kind of closure. The salon where this all started went out of business 6 months after the incident. I only know because Vanessa mentioned it in one of her texts, the ones I don't respond to but still read. She said it was sad that she'd really liked the place. I thought, good, that's probably petty, probably cruel, but I never claimed to be a saint. I claimed to be good at my job, and I am.